What is up, guys? It's Orca Flop, and today I'm coming at you with another video. And today we're going to talk about the disaster that NASCAR has created, that is the 2019 Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Aero package for the Gen 6 car. This was announced, the news, back in May of 2018, a little bit after they used it as the All-Star package, and now this is going to become the primary Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Aero package. And the reason I'm deciding to do a little bit of a review on it now is because I tested it at Las Vegas last week on Thursday and Friday. I didn't make a video exactly there. I just gave a couple of thoughts on Twitter. But I figured today's a good day since I have nothing to do, that I give my breakdown on the 2019 Cup Series Aero package. And I tell you what, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. It is exactly what Kamikaze Games, David Land, and I have been saying. It's going to be a single file draft pack at 1.5 tracks and up. It may not affect short track racing or road course racing, which that's probably a good thing. But it's not even going to make the 1.5 tracks that great, considering that this 550 horsepower, yes, they lowered the horsepower. They took out 200 horsepower out of the cars as a way to try to appeal to different manufacturers that might be willing to come into the sport and maybe make a way to, cheapen up the costs to build a NASCAR V8. In that sense, from a business standpoint, I understand the lowering of the horsepower, but it's not creating the racing any better, as the new Aero package consists of a bigger splitter, which is exactly what we didn't want, a bigger spoiler, which, hands down to NASCAR, they got one thing right. The bigger spoiler is what I like. That creates a bit more downforce in the rear, so the drivers have a lot more grip, and it'll have, make it more controlling for them. It also consists of aero ducts, which is a thing that I have also liked. I believe it was also on the Gen 4 car, and what the aero ducts do is basically take in dirty air and make it a non-factor to cars behind the leader, and I'll get to that later. And that makes dirty air as not much of a problem as it used to be, so I like the aero ducts. NASCAR did a good thing on that. Another thing I don't like is that now we have a bigger tapered spacer, and when they said they'd take out the restrictor plates, we all were happy until they revealed that they would put in a bigger tapered spacer that would slow the cars down even more than 550 horsepower. I think it's like 515 now, and it's basically the same size as a restrictor plate. If you know anything about cars, you know what I'm talking about. Tapered spacers go under the manifold, and it basically limits the amount of air getting into the engine to rotate the pistons at a high rate. That's how you create your horsepower. With this bigger tapered spacer, it's basically doing the exact same job as a restrictor plate by lowering the horsepower and slowing the cars down to where they have to draft off of each other to get any sort of momentum. Side force is still here. They didn't take out the side force in this Aero package, and it's not going to be good, especially when drivers go out to pass high. So there's still side force in the 2019 Aero package, which is absolutely ridiculous. Because when a driver, I think I explained it in another Aero package video I said a while ago, with the Gen 6 car and even with the COT, but it wasn't as bad with the COT, if a driver were to pull up onto the outside and try to make a side swipe from the outside and take a position, with the Gen 4 car, because the corner panels were equally split, or crooked, they were equally crooked on each end, the drivers would have stable control when they're making passes on each other, because when a car goes on the outside with the Gen 4 car, the car on the bottom that's getting passed wouldn't get into turbulent air, wouldn't have the risk of spinning out. When you have one corner panel straight, and then the car passing on the outside is a crooked corner panel, that creates turbulent air with the dirty and the clean air that's coming from the outside and the inside. That turbulates, and that creates a force pushing the car on the inside down, and the car on the inside spun out. I'll give an example for you. The 2019 Michigan race, or the 2018 Michigan race, my bad, not 2019. 2019 Michigan race, when William Byron was trying to make a pass on Martin Truex Jr., he tried to side draft Truex on the outside. That turbulent air with Truex's straight corner panel and Byron's crooked corner panel, that caused turbulent air, and that's both both spun Truex and William Byron out. The side force, the whole purpose of side force was to keep the cars at a stable amount of control. Jimmy McMurray at Las Vegas in 2008 was a perfect example with the COT as he drifted turns 1 and 2 because the side force was putting the air more towards the back of the car to get straight. As with the Gen 4 car, when you didn't have that, it took a lot more driver skill because you really had to maintain the control of the car, because with Kyle Busch in 2005 at Charlotte, I can't pull up these clips because I think I might get copyrighted, but for an example, Kyle Busch in 2005 at Charlotte, he was going into the turn, he lost the car, and it just whipped right around. Because the Gen 4 car took a lot of skill, and you really had to control the car and maintain stable balance within the race car. That's what brought driver skill. With the side force, you know you're basically, if you spin out, you can easily correct the car, and it's not that hard to do. You just counter steer at the right times, the Aero push back on the car, and the car will straighten out. And that's not competitive whatsoever. In fact, even if you straighten out the car, you still fall back a lot, as it was supposed to be a way to make it more competitive. Brian France, nice job. The 2019 Aero package. I just broke down everything did I mention there's no valence, or the ride height is still slammed to the ground? Yeah, that's going to create good racing. What else was I going to mention? Okay, so what we saw from the Las Vegas testing was a perfect example, like I think we all saw what we were going to see. During the day practices, there's a notable difference between the Xfinity composite body cars and the Cup cars. Not because the Xfinity Series cars have a bit less side force, because the Xfinity cars actually have more horsepower than the Cup cars, so they were running faster lap times than the Cup Series cars, which is a pretty big embarrassment. They were like a couple seconds faster than the Cup Series cars. That is quite embarrassing, and it shows how desperate the Cup Series is to get more competitive without making too many aerodynamic changes. Over the course of the Las Vegas testing, we saw a single-file draft, mainly with Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, Ty Dillon, Jimmy Johnson, and Ryan Newman. They were not able to pass each other, as Kyle Busch complained after the first test session that when he tried to make a move onto the outside, a wall of air would hit his car's nose and it would slow him down and he'd lose about 2 positions when he tried to go to the outside and make a side drafting move. The cars were basically glued to the bottom because of the fact that you need the draft in order to be fast with these cars. You get out of the draft, you're going nowhere because the tapered space are so much bigger now. You need to find ways to get air pushed into the intake of the car by drafting instead of just going out into clean air. You're not going to get as much air into the car. That's the point of drafting. You want to get more air into the engine to create a bit more horsepower. That's the purpose of drafting. And the leader was basically impossible to pass. The only pass I saw for the lead was Kyle Busch, because Kyle Busch is that talented of a driver. He's able to find a way to wheel that car to the lead. Other than that, no one else was able to pass Brad Keselowski for a solid 80 laps, I would say. Because literally, Bubba Wallace also tried to make a pass on Ty Dillon while they were practicing running this Aero package in the draft. He tried to go to the high side draft, Ty Dillon, similar to how Kyle Busch did. And a wall of air just punched Bubba Wallace's car in the face, and he dropped back 3 positions. It's ridiculous. Because as soon as these cars get into clean air, it instantly slows them down because they're not getting that extra amount of horsepower from the draft. And because these cars are so limited to be equal now with the mandated tapered space, or the mandated horsepower, the mandated spoiler and splitter, all the cars are basically the same. It is ridiculously hard to pass because if you're not in the draft, if someone's not willing, it's basically a restrictor plate race now. If no one's going to pull up to the high side with you and try to get a draft off, if no one's going to try to make an effort to go to the high side, get a draft going, and pass the leaders, then you're not going to have good racing. Because literally the cars, every time, I think it was Ryan Newman that was sitting in second, he would draft up to Keselowski a little bit, but instead of touching Keselowski's rear end or having enough momentum from the draft to be able to pass Keselowski on the inside or outside, given the straightaway or the corners, there was a bubble of air that was still coming off the cars because of side force that would create a bubble of air on Keselowski's rear end that would push Newman back. And that's not even just for the leader. You saw a couple position battles for position on 15th on back, and people who defend this aero package was like, well, there's still a lot of passing in the back. There's always been passing in the back because everyone at that point is in dirty air, and you can run different lines and try to make something happen because in the end, you're all in dirty air and you're facing the same problems. So, that being said, the leader having the clean air now is such an important value, and track position is going to be a key value now because you don't get that lead. You need to have clean air because, again, like I said, you're not going to get any momentum from being in a draft and the reason the leader is so powerful and it's hard to pass the leader is because the clean air, they're getting more horsepower from the people in the draft pushing them ahead, that the air out of itself doesn't really affect their horsepower like it does when a driver in the back tries to get out of the draft and pull up to the high side and pass. It's a complicated thing, but it shouldn't have to be this way. If NASCAR hadn't dug themselves in a hole with the COT and made themselves up to here, it wouldn't be as complicated. So yeah, the drivers were literally in a single file line. And I want to mention the night testing because I will admit there was a lot more passing in the night testing at Las Vegas. Because I think it's mainly because the track surface was different. The air was a bit different. But again, you didn't see many passes for the lead. Clint Boyer was the only one who I think was able to make 2 passes on the high side because as soon as he would go outside of Austin Dillon, he immediately tried to get right on that corner panel. And it would create enough of a side draft in order for him to get past him. The good thing is I don't think you're going to see that many side force spinouts anymore given that they have the lower horsepower now. Because I think with the higher horsepower, that created more turbulent air than it is going to now. So maybe that's a good thing. People wanted the racing to be closer. That's what you got. But guess what? Now it's impossible to pass. Because being in clean air now is going to be such an advantage. Because literally as soon as the leader gets out there, he just sticks to a line. No one's going to be able to pass him because they're going to be constantly in a draft. And as soon as they get out into that clean air, the car's going to handle so much differently. And they're not going to expect it. And they're going to drop back. Again, I might talk a little bit more about the aero package in Atlanta. But again, I don't even think Atlanta is going to be a good thing because the track is so rough and wear that it's not going to really matter. Harvick's probably still going to do well. So I think I'll wait till Las Vegas to really start talk about the aero package, but even still, I'm going to do it in Atlanta. One more thing I was going to mention is with the 550 horsepower the cars have, even if you are in the draft, you are still flat-footing it through the corners. For God's sakes, NASCAR, we've been saying this since 2008. Flat-footing the corners does not create good racing. You know what it does? It's exactly what the stereotypes say. You're just going around in circles and doing nothing. Because literally now the cars are glued to the bottom since there seems to be no other line. And Kyle Busch said this, and NASCAR kind of fucked him up for this because Kyle Busch said that it takes no skill to drive these cars, or it doesn't take a lot of skill. I'll put it to you. For the people who like to be really positive about NASCAR, I'll put it to you this way. He basically said it doesn't take as much skill as it did with the previous aero package to drive. And he's 100% right. Brad Keselowski said this. Truex said this. I believe Ryan Newman made a comment on this. And NASCAR debunked all of them and changed up their quotes because they want to be recognized in a good way, not a bad way. Jesus. Kyle Busch isn't wrong. When you're flat-footing it through the corners and staying behind a car 24/7 and you're just sitting there hoping to get enough of a draft momentum where you can at least attempt to make a pass, that doesn't take any skill. If you're flat-footing it through the corners, revving at the same RPM and staying in 4th gear the entire time, not even going to 5th or 6th, that doesn't take talent. No. You don't need to do that. I think I could fucking hop in that car and I could make something happen. Not saying I could take the lead. I'm sure I'm trash, but I'm just saying I could make a lap in that car. It's too easy to handle. The thing that made the Gen 4 car so good was the fact that it was so hard to handle. And it really it wasn't as hard to handle to the point where it's like undrivable, but it was hard enough to handle that, really showed driver talent. And over the course since 2008, NASCAR has really been debunking that with the COT, the Gen 6, and now the fucking Gen 6 Aero package now that we have now. Because more off-throttle time creates better racing, because when you have the timing of drivers to get on the throttle and get off the throttle, that creates better racing because the drivers are all, using the throttle and the shifting at different times, and that allows drivers to show if they're running a better line, if they're shifting at the better times, if they're getting on the throttle better than the other driver. That's what even the old Gen 6 Aero package did. I hate the old Gen 6 Aero package, but at least it took talent to drive. Kyle Larson, you probably will never see him on the high line until Gen 7 comes out, which is in 2021, by the way. I might make a video on that. Kyle Larson won't be running the high line anymore. The drivers aren't going to be running their own lines anymore, because as soon as they pull out of that draft, they're going to get hit with a wall of air because their cars have already adapted to trying to get momentum from the other car's air, that you really can't make a pass unless it's really even on the straightaway. In the turns, it's almost impossible. The most likely part of the track you're going to be able to pass is probably the front straightaways at every track, because even the back stretches are a bit shorter. So pick and choose your battle. This Aero package doesn't require any talent, and I'm very disappointed in NASCAR for this, because literally this Aero package, all it is slowing down the cars and then claiming to not have a restrictor plate, but it does have a restrictor plate. The only three good things actually that I like about this Aero package is, yeah, it made the racing closer, but you can't pass. I'll give it that. They made the racing closer. Because now you can draft off the leader at a stable amount of speed, it's not possible for the leader to pull away when you're still getting air off of them. But even still, the leader is impossible to pass because he's in clean air. And clean air is going to be stronger than ever now. Because at least when you had clean air with the old Aero package, drivers were able to run different lines, try other things to handle their car, and be able to make a pass on the leader by trying something different and getting on the throttle at a certain time. Throttle control is one of the most key parts of racing, and that's what NASCAR has basically stripped away until maybe Gen 7 comes out, which is 2021. I'm not even clickbaiting you on that. They said on Twitter that Gen 7 will be coming out in 2021. I probably will make a different video on that. That might be tomorrow or whatever. But NASCAR, you're really fucked up, and it's a good thing that this is only lasting for 2 years, because if Gen 7 is fucked up, then NASCAR is going to die. So, guys, just 2 years of this bullshit, and then Gen 7. Come on, we can do it. 2019, 2020 are going to suck, but at least, we can look forward to Gen 7 coming out in 2021. So, again, I think I've said my fair point about this Aero package. I've said enough. I already said it in a different video, but I figured I'd make this since it seems like everyone else was making it. So, Gen 7, we're waiting for you. I want the valence. I want the ride height raised up. Don't want a splitter. I want the Aero ducts. I don't want a tapered spacer. I want a big spoiler. That's all you gotta do. And also no side force. Make the corner panels even. That's all I ask. You got 2 years of this bullshit and gimmick racing, manufactured racing, if you ask me. And Kyle Busch couldn't be more right. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's kind of a downer since, again, it seems like I'm bashing NASCAR again. I'm sorry if I'm doing that too much. I just rather give my honest opinion because I really do care about NASCAR. I want to get this out of the way because people like Eric have been making statements that people like me and Kamikaze Games are just, we secretly want the sport to die. That's not true. I criticize the sport because I care about it. And it may seem weird, but I think when you critique the sport, I think that's ultimately what has led to changes like this. And I think in the end, this might be a positive direction for NASCAR. And I can't wait for Gen 7. If Gen 7 is good, I think NASCAR is up for a full recovery. So, I can put it to you that way. But thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the 2019 Aero package. Me being a car enthusiast, this is very depressing how bad this Aero package is and how much talent it doesn't require to use. Hope you guys enjoyed watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.